that's part of the thing about Mass Ave corridor. We're proving we need it. That's the 25% that Mr. Greeley was speaking about. It goes to them, and then we have to prove our case. And if it needs change, or they find that there are problems with it, just like Forest Street or whatever, they will make the adjustments. They will tell us. We're not going to tell them. At a certain point, they do tell us because it's their money. So I think the federal funding, state funding, is the way to go for this. The concern I have in a lot of the parts of Mass Ave, which are in dire need of repair, is we have trolley tracks underneath. So that's going to compound, triple the cost of any project that we tackle on Mass Ave, especially if it's including widening sidewalks, doing bump outs, doing islands. Any of this is going to need to go really below the surface, and that's going to be a buster as far as budget. So I would like to see us get grants as much as we can from the state and federal government. We need to keep the roads up. And I know it's a tough winter here. There's no question about it. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, Nathan, I'm just, how does one manage a 40,000 person website? Well, the reason I ask is because I have always wished, you know, for example, registering to vote or even voting. I wish we could do that from home. And I understand the issues of, you know, identity and, you know, not really, in early political times, it was checked the obituary columns the day before voting so that you knew what names to use as you went in. But so from you know, but you know what I mean. Arlington is about 43,000. You don't see a website that all residents could participate in, do you? Or
absolutely
what
not.
it would take to run such a thing? Or?
I mean, as Ms. Romano pointed out, I mean, there is a segment of the community that simply does not use the internet in the way that younger generations do now. Right. And other forms of outreach in that case would need to be necessary. But as far as the practicality of managing it, for example, the one that I work with is, for the most part, self-managed. You know, currently for Arlington, there is the
Arlington list.
Yes, that I'm on and kind of watch, but that can be a bit cumbersome if you start to have a lot of people participate in it, just because you get thousands of emails, or you get a bunch of emails in one chunk.
Certain days, certain issues. Yeah.
Exactly. And a form is a little more clean in how it's segmented and broken down, and you have people who manage those different segments. Whether it's an issue like Mass Ave, and you'll have a lot of people joining in on that, and you have certain moderators that will control, you know, if people get out of control of what they're saying, you set a precedent of what is acceptable and what is not, you know, a level of decency on there. Or if it's something small, like someone wants to give away a refrigerator or something like that, that can also be on there in a separate section, also self-managed. They're usually pretty well managed when done right, though. So,
I can ask a question?
Sure.
Yes. Mr. Greeley.
Yes.
What do you consider the 4 critical elements of the next 5-year plan?
What do I consider the 4 critical elements of the next 5-year plan? I'll tell you mine if you'll tell me yours. First of all, same thing. All budgets need to have a limit placed on them. An override would have to include what would be recommended for budgets with the override and without the override. I would have to include how are we going to pressure our legislative delegation to continue to try to bring back from the state the $7 million we've been cut over the last 10 years, more so than most other communities have had to suffer from. And I guess the 4th one is we certainly, again, would have to have some sort of a caveat on health care. The current one called for a 7% cap, something like that. So those are the 4 critical elements I would see. What about you?
Mine is to maintain our financial reserves at 5% or greater over our operating budget. An example, if it's a $120 million budget, we have to have $6 million in reserve. And secondly, as you spoke on, rein in our budget busters, which is healthcare and special ed. And thirdly, analyze every department's mission, its resources, and how various departments are interconnected. I think that's essential. Fourth, identify the most critical funding within the town and make sure that those resources are available to perform these critical functions. I think that's a sound criteria for the 5-year plan.
I think the first and foremost thing is really getting the health costs under control and really trying to work again with the local unions to try to come to some sort of agreement to get that through. Beyond that, I really think there needs to be more discussion as far as what the community as a whole is willing to do. You know, you mentioned 5%, was it? Or, you know, I mean, what really does the community want to go with as far as their willingness to spend essentially for good, you know, for services here in the community? And you know, I don't know the answer to that right now. I think we would need to get that sort of information from people from town meetings. You know, ask that question directly.
That's right.
So.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Just back on his the website and the electronic. At the Advocate, have you found the electronic Advocate increases each year, similar to those who actually buy the newspaper? Or, you know, is there a correlation between those two? Or
This is kind of off topic, but
you know, well, I'm just because you do a lot electronically as well now, right? On the Advocate.
yes,
right?
we do. We
Right.
do.
And I'm just so is that increasing? Is that
It is. It is. I think our circulation is falling faster than, not that we should be talking about this, but
Well,
falling faster than our web hits are climbing. But there is, we're seeing more of a web presence.
it just, you know, my 16-year-old daughter, I think the only way she talks is by texting. In business, the average, according to the American Management Association, the average business person today deals with 120 emails. Now, some people, I'm sure, deal with a lot more and some a lot less than that. But as Maria points out, there's a large population that isn't electronically savvy. But there's no question that's what the future is and what we need to all be involved with.
But getting back
Yes,
to you guys, do you have any other follow-up questions for each other, or any other topics you want
I have a question.
to press?
Mr. Greeley, approximately 8 years ago, you championed the purchase of the former Sims Hospital, and the people in this town voted to purchase the property based on a promise of a medical use. And since that time, what we have is a pile of dirt, and a $14 million pile of dirt at that. And how do you explain that to our town?
How do I explain a pile of dirt to our town? Well, I hope that our town has had their eyes open for the last 8 years. The Board of Selectmen recommended the purchase of the Sims property with 5 goals in mind. We have so far been able to hold to all of those 5 goals. They included making sure that we kept the open space of 14 acres, make sure 10 of them remain open space. Make sure that we provide for some affordable housing, and specifically some affordable housing for Arlington employees on that site. That we would protect the neighborhood from this particular development. That we would also make sure that we would increase the parkland which the current developer agreed to. So where are we today? Yes, the real estate market has changed dramatically, but it is still important that